It is a Wednesday, my dudes, and that brings us back once again to another riveting episode of Velocity Lake, episode 19, which, myself saying this, I'm getting some deja vu because this is my second attempt at recording this commentary. I did the entire thing, recorded 30 minutes worth of commentary, in fact 32 minutes worth of commentary. I know this video is not 32 minutes long, and you'll understand why in a second. I recorded 32 minutes of commentary, rendered it, uploaded it, then proof watched it the next day, so today, and well, safe to say, in the footage, I did an oof. I did a whoopsie. I did a rewind. The footage kind of repeats itself. There's this segment of footage that is played twice. I do not know how I did not pick up on this during my first recording of the commentary, because I generally watch the screen whilst I'm recording the commentary, and I would see if I feel like I've seen this bit of footage before. Then again, I do most of my commentaries whilst blind drunk, so who knows? That was a little joke, by the way. Let me introduce the episode, instead of introducing this episode with my incompetence at video editing and just general YouTubing, I will introduce the video instead with a description of the video itself. I guess if you didn't read the title or thumbnail and just blindly clicked on this at random from your sub box, then this will be the video subject will be the construction of the monorail station. The monorail, of course, we built in last week's very exciting episode. You know, that episode where I prefaced it saying, by the way, guys, this is a very boring one, so feel free to skip it. Yeah, that monorail. But we're doing something I think is a little bit more exciting this week. We're actually going to be building the infrastructure associated with it. And whilst this video is the same length, I think it's a little less monotonous, a little bit less repetitive, and a bit more interesting in terms of just the general stuff that occurs. So that's what we're doing. Now, I'm going to... have I started it? I nearly synced this up perfectly. Okay, so here you can see me building the interior of the station here. Now, I'm going to go ahead right away and say that it's really nothing special at all. I don't like spending that much time on the interiors of my buildings, just because I like looking at Planet Coaster as akin to a model train set. It's really nice from a distance and looking at the table from a bird's eye view, or a human eye view in the case of a model rail. That was an unnecessary tangent. Let's move on. Yes, I like to think of it like a model railway. So whilst it's all well and good looking at it from a bird's eye view, I'm not that fussed about every little piece of intricate interior being just as, detailed as the exteriors. The one exception being my coaster stations, which I think is the case for a lot of people as well, because the coaster stations are visible when you do POVs of the rides, which is a very big feature of Planet Coaster. And one of my main enjoyments is, when I'm not recording, I'll just sit and ride the rides in this park and marvel at the scenery and get an immense sense of pride and accomplishment of all the money I spent on the DLC for this game now, and all the stuff I've built in this park. It's really nice, and so I that's why I do lots of nice scenery for the actual ride stations themselves, the interiors I mean. But for stuff like monorail stations, where really I'm never gonna go down and look into them, I don't have to put much effort into them, which leads me to this wonderful interior, which looks like a maze for lab rats. Just a very plain... I would have been better served just leaving the whole thing big and empty rather than creating this horrific claustrophobic prison of a queue line. But there we go. It's more just to serve the function of having a segregating wall throughout the, probably separating might be a better word, wall throughout the queue line, but literally serve no other function other than that. Not going to be the case for the actual station platform exterior bit itself. I'm immensely proud of how that turned out, and I'm assuming you may have got a glimpse of how it turned out based on what I assume the thumbnail will be. I have no idea what the thumbnail will be for this video, but I'm assuming it's going to be a picture of the station. Would make sense, because that's going to be the crux of this episode. The tail end of this video will be a little bit of work on the interior, on the park entrance building, but that's going to be mostly focused on next episode. A lot of admin. These 3 episodes are it's like the trilogy of nothingness. Actually, that's a lie, because in total we do achieve a lot. We build a big station, we build an epic monorail layout, and we get a nice sort of realistic-ish entrance for the park. But in terms of episode by episode content, it's fairly repetitive stuff. As in, there's no central focus. I don't know, actually, because there is a central focus. For this one, it's building the station. The previous one was building the track for the railway, for the monorail, and next episode will be the entrance building. But I don't know, just the whole thing just feels like it's all just sort of one big mush of content. It's not exciting like with roller coasters, the pinnacle of we're putting a roller coaster is going to form this really big epic part of the park. This is all just like infrastructure stuff, which maybe you guys find really interesting. But for me, it's more like just busy work to help sell the rest of the park. But in and of itself, it's not that interesting. So feel free to click off this video. Well, I mean, watch the ad I put halfway through this video. But after that, you can click off. I mean, I say watch the ad I'm going to put halfway through this video. I recently made a Twitter post about the new YouTube Creator Studio, which they're now forcing everyone to use. And the monetization menu is absolutely dreadful. I sometimes like to put an ad break halfway through longer videos just because, you know, I feel like I've earned it. It takes a lot of work to make these long videos. I feel like it's okay and acceptable to put a quick 5-second ad break in the middle of a 30-minute episode. So I'm like, I'll put it here because here was a natural point, a natural break in the commentary to insert an ad. Not the case anymore. YouTube has stripped this feature away from us. Now they are the only ones that can decide apparently how many ad breaks you can have and where the ad breaks are going to go. It just says, would you like mid-roll ads? If so, we will place them for you. And I'm like, how many are you placing? Where are you placing them? I don't really want more than one mid-roll ad. Generally, if the video is less than 45 minutes long, I never put more than 2 ads in the middle of the video. If it's more than 45 minutes, again, I feel like that extra work required 5-second ad. Maybe you guys disagree. But again, the people that are really against ads in YouTube videos and don't like the fact that content creators get paid for their hard work probably have ad block installed anyway. So it's only really, you know, and I use YouTube Premium, YouTube Red as it was formerly known. So it doesn't affect me either way. But no, my point being that now we can't even do that. YouTube decides where the ads are for us. You can technically, I think, still choose where they are, but you have to load the YouTube video editor and then do it all that way. And the YouTube video editor is very slow, very cumbersome, and it takes ages to do the slightest thing. So what was a 2-second process of just, I want it there, put the ad there, is now click on monetization, then click ad breaks, then click mid-roll ads, then press open video editor, then wait 10 years for video editor open, then press the monetization tab, then insert the ad. It's like, oh my goodness. I mean, maybe it's to discourage the people that really abused the mid-roll ad and just who have like mid-roll ads every 2 minutes. But, you know, for those people, I have nothing to say to those people. But come on, guys. YouTube, you guys could do... I know, Susan, I know you watch these videos. You could do better than this, guys. By the way, here is to talk about the video again. This is me constructing the actual structure of the main station itself. So obviously both platforms for the railways share a common building, as is the case for most stations, every station ever, I think. I went with this kind of very modern metal and glass lattice structure. I don't know what the correct name for this kind of building is. Honeycomb lattice layout? I'm not sure. The main muse, like I think I mentioned last episode, was the WWF Planet Center. I think that's what it's called. But it doesn't really matter what it's called because either way, this ended up straying very far from its original, basis, like the building I based it on. It really looks nothing like it. I know for a fact there will definitely be stations that have this sort of structure in real life, but I didn't base this on any specific station. So maybe you guys can suggest a station that looks similar to this in the comments. Well done. This is probably related to a station. I just don't know any off the top of my head. Not that sounded way more. That sounded really cruel. I didn't mean that at all. I actually really like it when people leave comments saying this looks a lot like X or this looks a lot like Y, because it's kind of nice to say, oh yeah, so I did manage to pull off a somewhat realistic looking building. So if you guys do know of a building that looks pretty much the same as this, then I actually would genuinely be interested in knowing. Again, having to apologize for the awfulness of my commentary. It is a common theme in this series, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. But there is the shell there. So I don't actually know if this would work in real life. If it would be able to support its own weight. I'm not quite sure. I mean, literally, no, it wouldn't, because I'm building this out of wood and glass, but those wooden beams. And I know I'm not alone in this in terms of Planet Coaster content creators, and I guess the broader spectrum of people that play Planet Coaster, using those wooden beams to serve as objects that aren't wooden beams. Like, you can color them, and they're a really diverse piece, and you can use them for all sorts. Like, I've used them to make faux corrugated iron roofing by colouring them silver and placing them in such a way that they look like a corrugated iron. Similarly here, because they don't really look like wood because they're so heavily painted or whatever it is that the game describes them as, that they could just pass as metal. And the actual metal pieces themselves in this game look a bit naff. They're very over exaggerated, I think, because the Planet Coaster scale is slightly larger than real life, so everything looks a little bit goofy and cartoony. But these wooden pieces, they're very good at putting the legwork of serving as pieces that aren't wooden beams. So there is that. And that's pretty much the end of that piece of the structure. We're going to do pretty much the entirety of the station in this episode, but I am kind of gutted that we're not going to do one key thing. Admittedly, it's not a very big thing, but it's a small detail that really helps sell this as a realistic looking station, and that is the train timetables. So on the platforms themselves, I've got these like lamp posts, and they have a little hook on them, and attached to that hook is a screen that shows all like a digital view of all the train times and whatnot. That's a really nice feature, and I didn't end up doing that in this episode. The reason for this is, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, that I have this kind of bad habit with Planet Coaster. I mean, it itself is not a bad habit to have, but it's a bad habit from the point of view of a content creator, like someone that makes videos of Planet Coaster. What I have this tendency of is that I'll work on a building for a bit but not finish it. Then I'll go and just do something else in a completely different part of the park. And then whilst I'm doing that, I'll have this sudden surge of inspiration, like, what would really suit this other building? This. And I'll quickly whip away to the other building I was building on like ages ago, do that one feature change or edit, and then go back to the project I was working on. So if I was just playing Planet Coaster regularly like a normal player, that would be fine. In fact, that's actually a good habit to have, one might argue. But as a content creator, it's not great, because my videos then, I can't just have a focus of, in this video, we build the whole station and the entire station is finished by the end of it, because 3 episodes time when we're building a roller coaster randomly, it'll just whip to the station and do something. So it's not great for that, because my playstyle, to kind of differentiate Planet Coaster and Kerbal Space Program on this channel, Kerbal Space Program, I make week on week. Like, I will sit down on Sunday night or Monday night or whatever and say, right, what am I going to do for Kerbal Space Program this week? And I'll read the comments of the latest video to get some inspiration, refer to my little book where I scribble down ideas I have and think, that's a good mission idea. And then I'll plan out, I'll design the rocket, I'll do a quick test run, and then I'll go back and then just film the entire mission, edit the video down, and by Saturday, it's all done, ready to upload. That's not what I do for Planet Coaster. What I do is I'll just sit here and play the game for like 5 hours a day for like 2 weeks, or play the game for an unhealthy amount of time for like weeks at a time, and then just never play it again for months. But during that session, I recorded like 100 hours worth of footage, which probably equates to like 3 or 4 episodes often. But that's how I record the episodes for this series. And then I'll and then I'll edit the videos in like bulk. So like one day I'll do 2 commentaries for Planet Coaster. The next day I'll do another 2 commentaries. So I can whip out Planet Coaster. I said the word whip a lot in this comment. I think you guys, I don't know if I don't really use that word ever, and I seem to be constantly saying it in this episode for some reason. But I'll bash out like loads, like 5 Planet Coaster videos in 1 week, and then just relax for a month and a bit, because that's what 5 weeks is, until I'm running out of videos left in the back catalogue, and I'm like, oh goodness, we need to get more Planet Coaster content, so I'll quickly go and play the game for ages, and edit a load of videos, and then that's how the cycle works. I know for a fact a lot of Planet Coaster YouTubers I watch, the main ones, or at least the regular uploaders I watch, are Mike Sheets and Masked Bandit, and I've never really spoken to them on, I was about to say in real life, spoken to them on a DM level, but the impression I get from their commentaries and just the things they say is that they will generally do what I do for Kerbal Space Program, and that they will sit down and say, right, what am I going to do for my Planet Coaster video? And then they will sit down and just edit that video. And that's not what I do. So their videos are much more better presented than mine are, in that they can actually pace it well. So they will open up Planet Coaster, record some footage in real time and commentate over it live. Like, here is the park so far. I'm now going to go away and do some work and show the time lapse and them working. And then they could do another real-time live commentary portion at the end saying, this is what we achieved, this is what it's looked like. For me, I don't even have a plan for episodes. I'm like, I feel like building an RMC right about now. So I'll just sit there and build the RMC, then I'll build the surrounding area around it, and then I'll play the game for 5 more weeks, for a lot of hours, and then say, right, how can I break the footage down into episodes? For example, this little trilogy, like I described it earlier, I took the footage. I took like the last, however many hours of footage I had for Planet Coaster. And I was like, right, here I seem to be building the monorail. So I'll keep on adding footage into the Vegas timeline until the monorail is done. So I kept on adding all the footage for the construction of the railway. And then I got to the station. I'm like, well, the station's kind of relevant to the monorail. So let's keep adding the station footage, edit all that down. Edited not enough in hindsight, like I said at the beginning. I've had to record this commentary twice because I somehow looped the footage. And then I was like, well, the entrance building is here, and that's kind of in the same area, so let's keep adding that to the footage. And then I ended up with, without a commentary, obviously, a Planet Coaster episode that was an hour and 20 minutes long. So then I'll sit there and think, right. So I've got an hour and 20 minutes long episode of Planet Coaster, which is too long, really, to stand my voice. So how can we break this down logically? So I tend to go through it and like, well, okay, we can divide it into the construction of the railway, construction of the station, construction of the entrance building, additions. Okay, these seem to be fairly evenly lengthed episodes. Great wording there. This is a good way of doing it. And that's generally how I plan out my Planet Coaster videos. And, I am kind of taking on feedback. I've had a lot of feedback on my commentaries recently, for better or worse, because Kerbal Space Program 2. Actually, I'm going to preface this entire tangent now by saying I really don't mean to start any drama. I don't want to come across as complaining or annoyed with the fan base at all whatsoever. I understand because I mentioned it a lot in my videos that I am definitely far from perfect in terms of a content creator, so I am always appreciative of this feedback. But no, Kerbal Space Program 2 was recently announced, and there's been lots and lots and lots and lots of Reddit threads and Twitter threads and whatnot asking Scott Manley to do the tutorial, like voiceover for the tutorials. And I hopefully this doesn't sound arrogant saying it, me being one of the bigger Kerbal Space Program channels, usually in those threads my name does get mentioned. So I often like to check it out to see if I have been mentioned and if people have anything to say about my commentary, so I can take on any feedback if necessary. And a lot of people, like a few people said, oh, it'd be great if Matt Lowne did commentaries as well. And generally the consensus is no, that would be bad, because Matt he comes across as very jittery and coked up and always has this nervous laugh whenever he says something, which doesn't fill people with confidence. And I take that on board. And again, these are valid criticisms that people are totally entitled to have. So I'm not, whinging or going on about, the haters and all that. Not what I'm trying to get across as at all. But it's maybe mindful, because I do, it's part of the, try to pick my words here. It's part of the persona I've tried to paint myself as, in that I don't like coming across as arrogant or like cocky or like I am better at this game than you are and I'm great and blah 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 blah, which is actually a criticism that people had of me back in my early days of YouTube commentary. People said he comes across as super arrogant or all that, which was not my intention at all. And that's not me also saying that other creators like Scott Manley, Marcus, any of them have an arrogant persona whatsoever. I never got that impression from them. I never got that impression from me either, hence why I kept on making that mistake, apparently. So I do try and spin my commentaries to have a kind of slightly more relaxed attitude, and also because I want to paint the fact that the Kerbal Space Program is a very intimidating game to do the more ambitious missions for. It's very difficult. It has a very steep learning curve. Sometimes it can be very intimidating to watch someone who clearly knows what they're talking about, has advanced backgrounds in astrophysics and all that. So I tend to try and tone down my commentary in that sense. Like, I tend to come across a little bit more incompetent than I perhaps am, to kind of show that this guy's, it's not as hard as it looks. It's easy, anyone can do it, even idiots like me, is generally the kind of persona I've tried to form. That's not to say that what I'm showing in my videos is a complete fake personality, but it's definitely, I think, at least I like to think, is a slightly more caricaturish version of myself when I'm actually playing the game for real. And I think people that watch my live streams might see that. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm like in a live stream, but I think I'm far more attentive and careful in what I'm doing, because I have the length of a live stream to talk. And I know for a fact that when I've got a time limit against me and when I'm seeing footage played at a fast-paced rate, I tend to start talking. I have this nasty habit and this is a bad habit in general, not just a bad habit from a Planet Coaster YouTuber point of view, like habits were earlier. I don't even know why I'm trying to link the two topics here. It's kind of a bad habit in that I tend to talk very, very fast, and then that leads me to start tripping over my words, and I start panicking and trying to cram more talking points that I can really realistically fit into a given space of time. And I know talking fast in general is just a thing that I do. Patients have actually, because I'm a clinician in my day job, as I think I mentioned maybe in last episode, I deal with patients, and a lot of them have kind of said to me that I'm talking very fast. Granted, one of my specialties is macular degeneration, which happens to old people. So a lot of my patients are above the age of 80. So I have to talk very slowly. And even then, when I'm talking very, very slowly, sometimes it is still too fast for them to take in, because of course it is. They're old. You've got to allow a bit more time. So that's another reason why I'm slightly more aware that I do talk. I'm a bit of a fast talker. So I do try and manage it. So I appreciate that people might think I come across as a bit jittery and a bit sort of fast talking. And it is something I'm trying to work on all the time. Like, I am always consciously trying to talk slower. But in terms of my perceived incompetence, that's definitely something I try and paint a picture of, just so that hopefully try and make the game seem less intimidating to people that, have never really attempted the mission scope that I am doing. So if it's not something that people like, I will try and make myself come across a little bit more professionally, a little bit more competently. But maybe you guys like the style of commentary I have. I mean, you guys probably do, because I don't get as many views on Planet Coaster as I do for Kerbal Space Program. So I'm guessing it's my more dedicated fans that watch this series. I don't really like saying that, because I know a lot of channels that don't complain. People don't watch their other content that isn't there for the content that people are subscribed for. And I always think it's like, come on, dude, what do you expect? So I really don't expect people to watch this game series that I do if they don't play Planet Coaster, or if they don't care about Planet Coaster, because, why would I want you to watch something that you don't care about? If anything, I'm glad that they don't watch this series. In a similar sense to, like, this is actually kind of a bad example because I do watch it, but like Jim Sterling is a channel that has a series called Jimquisition, if you don't know what that is. If you don't know who he is, I should say. He has a series called Jimquisition, which is what his channel is built on, but he does lots of other series as well that never get anywhere near as many views as Jimquisition, and he is very, very aware of it. And I actually do this. I said it's a bad example because I do watch his other videos, but the people that don't, like, I get it. I get why you would want to watch Jimquisition. If you subscribe for that series, then I understand why you would only watch that series. A better example might be Red Letter Media, one of my favorite channels on YouTube. I really love their review series. Their Red Letter Media talks about XYZ and Half in the Bag, and of course the Plinker reviews. Who doesn't love those? But I don't tend to watch Best of the Worst. And so, I can't remember the last time I watched Best of the Worst. And I think of that example when I'm thinking of, why don't my Planet Coaster videos get enough views? And I'm like, yeah, because people subscribe to me for Kerbal Space Program, and that is fine. You may have noticed, I suddenly realized I've not talked about this video very much. I've not talked about the content of this video much because I feel like I've already talked about it sufficiently. It's a station. It's a steel and glass construction, going for a modern architecture style that also fits in with the general look of the rest of the park. And I think it's kind of boring to talk about it much further than that, because you can darn well see what's happening. You don't need me to, commentate over what is very, very obvious to you. It's not like something like Kerbal Space Program, where some of the things I'm doing might seem like very difficult to you. Although Planet Coaster is difficult for a lot of people, it's one of those things where you can just watch it and get it. Unlike something like Kerbal Space Program, where there's potentially more mathematics and advanced planning involved. Yeah. Oh my goodness, we've been talking 24 minutes. I've been doing pretty well. Is there anything else I need to talk about in this commentary whilst I'm still on track and talking about footage before I go off on one of my other inevitable tangents? I don't think so. I'm doing very well in terms I'm very hungry. I'm very tired. I've started working evenings now at work because I work for the NHS, which I don't know if you guys know this, but the NHS is on its knees in terms of its budget. We are very, very I'm like my waiting list alone for patients that need to see me is like 6 months. So I'll request to see a patient in 6 weeks' time. They don't see me for another 6 months, which is, I think we can all agree, bad. And across our whole department, we've got an absolutely colossal number of patients waiting. So to help mitigate this, we've all agreed to do some evening clinics. So we're no longer finishing we're no longer finishing work at 5. We're now finishing work at 7, which is fine because we're getting paid for it and all that. And most people, I know there's probably going to be people in the comments saying, "Oh, I work those kind of hours anyway. What's the big deal?" But for me, I'm trying to balance that and my YouTube job, which does eat up a fair amount of time. I'm affected. A lot of YouTubers that pump out my level of quantity of content, at least to kind of the editing level that I do YouTube full time. So it's a big job, especially when you have to consider that I do have a real life. I'd like to do kayaking at the weekend, so that's my weekend, and I have a girlfriend as well that I have to maintain that relationship for because women, am I right? So needy. So JK. So I've got a lot of things in my life, and then obviously my other things I do in life, like meet up with friends, go out, that sort of thing. Like this weekend, I'm going up to Birmingham to meet some mateys. Some of whom you may know from Off the Hook. The most popular series on my channel, I think you can all agree. Tupper and Ticoops and O'Haines are going to be there. If you guys have seen the Rocket League video of mine that I uploaded 4 years, I don't know. Time flies, eh? So yeah, it's a bit of a balance to work. So hence why I'm a bit tired, because I've got back from an evening shift. Haven't eaten yet because I like eating my steak. My Wednesday night is my steak night. And when I get back from work, I've got to take it out of the fridge. You've got to let it get to room temperature, guys. You never cook a steak from chilled. Okay? So you season it and let it sit for an hour and a bit. Get to room temperature, get seasoned. So I've got to wait. So I'm going on an empty stomach right now. I'm tired, obviously, for it being an evening shift. I'm blackout drunk, like I said. Again, JK. I suddenly realized that maybe I should be saying these sorts of jokes to my audience of impressionable children. Drug addiction is bad, guys. Don't do it. Maybe I should talk about the footage, move away from this hole that I've found myself digging myself into. So I've finished the station pretty much for now. Like I say, the only thing I need to do is the signposts that show the timetables for the train, which we'll do eventually. Now I'm just doing some work on the station, on the entrance building itself. So I wanted the entrance building to actually function as an entrance building. Function is something I really want in my Planet Coaster build. So the entrance building literally contains the park entrance. So it did end up with this sort of weird, janky path structure that I had to kind of cover up with fences. Consider the fences temporary. They look a bit naff. I'm aware of that. I will change them eventually, but for now they're kind of here as a placeholder. And that's the entrance bit. We're going to be doing most of the work on the entrance building next episode. So do I have any final thoughts on the station? The station itself, you may notice I've split it up into the red line and the blue line. I think it's the blue line that is actually the functional monorail that will actually ferry guests to and from the hotel, which I haven't built yet, but it will be built, and that'll be where that monorail goes. The other one is purely there for show. It's just a train. I may even just leave it on testing mode. It will just leave the station, disappear off into the hills that surround the park, do this kind of convoluted circuit to buy some time, and then it will return to give the illusion that it's gone to pick up guests from a location off the park, where maybe a bigger car park would be, and that car park would service a few of my theme parks, so Neptune Park and Crimson Tower, and that's like the central hub park for those that don't want to pay the extra fee to park at the car parks on site for the theme parks themselves. So that's kind of the general layout of the monorail. And to help sell this illusion further, I placed a spawn point inside the station building. And that was me talking about the footage that's already gone. But in case any of you were a bit confused about what was going on, maybe a bit frightened, a bit upset, now you know. And I think, guys, we're going to leave the episode there. So on screen, there are some links to things. On the left-hand side, you'll find a link to the full Velocity Lake playlist if you'd like to check out the previous episodes. On the right is a video chosen for you by YouTube's recommendation algorithm. There's also a link to subscribe and check out the Patreon if you'd like to. And in the description, you'll find links to Twitter, Discord, Instagram. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.